Shadows beneath Paris. Lucas and Claire, bound by an eerie kinship, shared an obsession that many would consider unthinkable. Their fascination with the macabre was not just a hobby, but a consuming hunger that drove them to explore the darkest corners of the world. Yet, of all their twisted adventures, Paris, the city of lights, shadows, and ancient secrets, became their most dangerous pursuit. Unbeknownst to them, this journey would unravel into a nightmarish descent, one from which escape would be but a fleeting dream. Beneath the bustling streets of Paris lies a vast, eerie network of tunnels, the Catacombs, a sprawling labyrinth that stretches for miles, a crypt housing millions of skeletal remains. These ancient bones, silent witnesses to history's cruel march, had long fascinated Lucas and Claire. But it wasn't merely the endless rows of skulls that called to them. It was the whisper of a legend, a tale wrapped in shadows and whispered in the hushed tones of those who dared remember. Deep within these catacombs, it was said, lay a hidden chamber where the dead did not rest, where bones stirred and whispered in the dark, driven by some malevolent force. This legend, elusive and half-forgotten, ensnared them. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Claire's voice, laced with an uneasy blend of fear and excitement, wavered as they stood at the gaping maw of the catacombs. Lucas, ever the daring soul, brushed aside her doubts with a smile that hinted at both confidence and a hint of madness. "It's just a story, Claire. We'll never get another chance like this." With a final lingering glance at the world above, a world of light and life, they plunged into the bowels of the earth. As they descended, the air thickened, grew colder, more oppressive. It clung to them like a shroud, as if the weight of countless forgotten souls pressed down upon them. The walls, slick with moisture, seemed to close in, narrowing the passage and heightening their sense of foreboding. Lucas led the way, his flashlight carving jagged beams of light that danced across walls lined with grinning skulls and brittle bones. Claire followed, her steps hesitant, her heartbeat quickening with each echoing footfall, the sound amplifying her unease. Time twisted in the darkness, minutes, hours, and eternity. The tunnels snaked and twisted, each one indistinguishable from the last, each a morbid gallery of the long dead. Yet Lucas, driven by an unspoken compulsion, pressed on, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the unknown. And then they found it, a narrow, almost imperceptible passage concealed behind a crumbling wall of bones, leading to a chamber that felt suffocating in its isolation. The air inside was heavy, thick with a chilling whisper that seemed to claw at their senses. The walls weren't just adorned with bones, they were formed from whole skeletons, their hollow eyes locked onto the intruders in silent accusatory judgment. "This is it," Lucas breathed, his voice barely more than a whisper, as though he feared the very walls might hear. He knelt in the center of the chamber, his flashlight casting cold, sterile light on the ground. Claire's fear spiked, sharp and visceral, slicing through her like a blade. "Lucas, I don't like this. We need to leave. Now." But Lucas was entranced, his attention riveted to something only he could perceive. "Just a little longer, Claire. I need to see." As his words faded, the whispering intensified, becoming more insistent, as if the bones themselves strained to be heard. Claire's heart pounded, her pulse a deafening drumbeat in her ears. She scanned the chamber, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow, the darkness around them seeming to pulse with a malevolent life. She wanted to flee, every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs felt leaden, rooted by a terror so deep it was almost primal. Then she saw it, just at the edge of her vision, a figure indistinct, moving towards them with a slow, deliberate grace. It was a thing of shadows, its form shifting and melding with the darkness, yet as it drew closer, she saw its eyes, empty sockets that glowed with a ghastly, otherworldly light. "Lucas," she screamed, her voice cracking with fear and lack, but he remained oblivious, lost in some unseen reverie, his mind ensnared by the chamber's sinister allure. The figure reached out, skeletal fingers brushing against Claire's arm with an icy touch that sent a bolt of cold terror straight to her core. In that moment, she knew with a bone-deep certainty, they had made a grave mistake. Lucas snapped out of his trance, his eyes wide with sudden, horrifying clarity. "Claire, we need to get out of here! Now!" But the walls, once still, now seemed to shift and writhe, the bones rattling as the whispering rose to a deafening roar. The figure loomed, skeletal grin widening in a silent, mocking laugh, a harbinger of doom. They turned to flee, but the passage had disappeared, replaced by a solid wall of bones. Trapped, ensnared by the catacombs themselves. Why is this happening? Claire's voice, now a desperate cry, barely pierced the cacophony. Lucas, voice trembling, answered, "The bones? They're not just resting here, they're hungry. These people, they weren't just buried, they were sacrificed." Claire's eyes widened in horror, her mind struggling to comprehend. Sacrificed? For what? For power, Lucas whispered, despair washing over him. For something ancient, something evil, and now, it's hungry again. The figure drew closer, its presence suffocating, as the chamber pulsed with dark energy. The walls of bones shifted, revealing more figures, more skeletons, emerging from the darkness, their bony hands reaching out, eager to claim new victims. They struggled, but every twist, every turn only led them deeper into the inky blackness. The whispering was deafening, the shadows tightening around them like a vice. Claire's strength ebbed away, her body growing cold, high force draining under the relentless touch of the dead. Lucas, too, weakened, his courage crumbling under the weight of the terror that surrounded them. Finally, they collapsed, backs pressed against the cold, unyielding bones, as the figures closed in. The truth, undeniable now, they would never escape. The catacombs had claimed them, as they had claimed countless others before. As the darkness swallowed them whole, the last sound that echoed in their ears was the sinister whisper of the dead, a macabre chorus welcoming them into their eternal, restless slumber. The catacombs of Paris remain an enigma, a place where death reigns supreme. Few dare to venture too deep, and those who do rarely return. The lucky ones who escape are forever haunted by what they've seen. And somewhere, deep beneath the streets of Paris, Lucas and Claire now rest, their bones mingling with the countless others, their whispers adding to the eerie chorus that will echo through the catacombs for all eternity.